The wind howled across the vast field, where giant turbines spun steadily against a gray sky. At the base of one of them, a man stood silently. A hard hat covered his forehead. A salt and pepper fake beard obscured most of his face, making him unrecognizable even to those who had met him countless times. Ethan Brooks, the founder and chairman of a leading wind energy corporation, was in disguise. No one would guess that the man standing beneath the towering blades, dozens of meters high, was the one who had built this empire from nothing. In the ordinary technician's uniform, he blended into the scene, no different from a newly arrived worker. He tilted his head to gaze at the massive blades spinning above, looking like the wings of some colossal creature in a deep slumber. They were the result of over 30 years of perseverance, struggle, and overcoming countless obstacles, from poverty and scorn to moments when bankruptcy seemed inevitable. Yet now, standing amidst what he had painstakingly created, he felt invisible. Has anyone ever felt they don't exist in the very world they built? He wondered, his eyes quietly observing the technicians moving in the distance. Busy, none noticing him. The feeling wasn't sad nor painful. It was just a silence, so real. He knew he hadn't come here just to look back on the past. Something was wrong. And more than anyone, Ethan understood that to uncover the truth, he had to make himself unremarkable. For only in silence do people reveal their true nature. Adjusting his hard hat, he walked toward the control station. This journey wasn't merely a technical inspection. It was a return, not to a place, but to the truth, to people, and to an old wound that had never healed. The wind still whistled above, but beneath the turbine, Ethan Brooks heard only the sound of his own heart, silent but not weak, invisible but not meaningless. Ethan paused on a low slope, where he could take in the entire wind farm stretching to the horizon. The towering turbines spun rhythmically, like silent warriors powering a symphony of wind and electricity. In the dim light of early dawn, they held a majestic beauty, cold yet alive. He closed his eyes for a moment. Once, this place had been nothing but a barren expanse of rocks and weeds. Who would have believed a poor man with no degree, no backing, armed only with a few prototype models and a crazy dream, could build a renewable energy empire spanning the nation? Ethan remembered the early days, carrying equipment up the hill himself, making endless calls for funding, facing rejection after rejection. Sleepless nights, moments of collapse from lack of funds and manpower. At times, it was just him and his belief, fragile as the wind, but more enduring than anything else. The day the first turbine spun its first rotation, he had wept. Not for success, but because he knew. From that moment, no one would say, the wind just passes and disappears. To Ethan, the wind could sustain millions, if you knew how to harness it. Now his system powered thousands of homes daily. His corporation employed thousands, operated hundreds of technical stations, and managed dozens of wind farms from the East Coast to the West. And here, the branch he stood at, one of the first, was also the one steeped in the most conflicted past. Ethan opened his eyes, his gaze now sharp with clarity. Beneath this grandeur, something wasn't right, simmering quietly. He felt it, like a craftsman who had touched every bolt, every wire, felt every vibration of the wind. And he knew. Only by returning to the starting point, working again as an anonymous technician, could he see what was being hidden. Ethan walked on, his heart carrying not just pride, but doubt and resolve. For he understood that to keep this empire standing, it wasn't enough to build higher. Sometimes you had to bend low, deep down, to pick up the cracks at the foundation. Before heading to the Western Branch, Ethan stood for a long time by the window of his office. Outside, electric cars zipped through the streets, while in his hand was a plane ticket booked under a false name, Ethan Miller. Everything was ready for a journey no one knew about, except for one person. He picked up the phone, dialing a familiar number. On the other end, Emily's voice came through, gentle, calm, but tinged with worry. "Are you sure you want to go? That branch is managed by Ryan. Ethan gave a faint smile. I know. That's exactly why I have to go. I'm just afraid Ryan still holds a grudge, she said. Ethan gently interrupted. I'm not going to provoke or settle scores. I'm going to protect what I've built. I'm just a technician, there to check the system, nothing more. He could sense the concern in Emily's breathing. Though they'd been married for years, to him, she was still the same as the day they met. Perceptive, composed, and the only one who truly understood the hidden corners of his heart. She was the one who believed in his dream of clean energy when it was nothing but dust and scribbled sketches. Just stay safe, Emily whispered. I trust you'll know what to do. Ethan nodded, though he knew she couldn't see. I'll be careful. This isn't just business. It's our story too. The call ended in silence, but in Ethan's heart, another wind had risen. Not the wind of the sky, but the wind of the past, of resentment and unresolved debts. Ryan Carter, the man Ethan thought had long faded from his life, now stood at the heart of one of his most vital branches. Ethan pocketed the phone, adjusted his hard hat, and stepped into a journey he knew wasn't just about inspecting turbines. It was about facing an old chapter that had never closed. The central control station of the branch sat amidst the wind farm, a modest but modern two-story concrete building surrounded by anti-glare glass. Ethan stepped inside as a newly transferred technician from the east, his carefully prepared fake identity in place. In his hand was a printed internal report, lines of data that seemed dry, but held the real reason for this trip. Turbine number 12, one of the mainstays of the farm, had recently experienced a series of anomalies. A malfunction in the lightning protection system, abnormal temperatures in the main shaft, and, most alarmingly, signs of localized burning in the grass near its base. Ethan knew all too well. Any fire near a turbine's base was a major threat. Wind turbines, though sturdy, had vulnerabilities, especially in lightning protection and cooling systems. If a lightning strike hit while the system was faulty, the damage could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, not to mention the risk of spreading to the entire cluster. But what truly unsettled him was this. No report from the branch had been sent to headquarters. Per protocol, an incident like this should have been logged and addressed within 24 hours. Yet the records Ethan received showed traces of entries that had been erased. He approached the operations desk where technicians were working. Feigning curiosity, he asked a young man quietly, "Do you know who's in charge of inspecting turbine number?" "Bunirindu," the young man frowned. "Turbine number 12. I don't think anyone's been assigned there recently. Is something wrong?" Ethan didn't answer. A suspicion began to form in his mind. If this was negligence, it was systematic. If not, someone was deliberately hiding something very serious. He silently opened the digital map on a secondary control panel. Turbine number 12 appeared, marked in faint orange, with a vague warning note. Ethan stared at the text for a long time. To an ordinary person, it might seem like a minor, unaddressed error. But to him, a man who had once climbed turbines in storms, wrench in hand, this was a warning of deliberate sabotage. There was no doubt now. He had come to the right place at the right time. And if Ryan Carter was truly involved, their confrontation wouldn't just be between two men. It would be a matter of survival for the entire system. The briefing ended, and Ryan left the control room with an arrogant stride. Ethan seized the moment to follow, holding the printed warning code for turbine number 12. Beneath his disguise as a new technician, he maintained a steady, low voice. "Sir, turbine number 12 has a warning for a lightning protection system error. I saw code E245 in the internal report." Ryan glanced at the paper, a smirk tugging at his lips. It's a false alarm. Those old codes are still in the system, but that turbine's running fine." Ethan frowned, unable to hide his suspicion. "But I did a preliminary check below. It shows burn marks and a scorched smell. There might have been sparks or someone burning trash nearby, violating fire safety regulations." Ryan let out a laugh, a dry, hollow sound echoing in the cold concrete hallway. "Are you a technician or an inspector?" Your job is to climb the turbine and tighten bolts, not read codes and speculate. I've been here 20 years. I know every turbine inside out. Ethan met his gaze, his eyes sharp as a hidden blade beneath a worker's coat. Understood. I just wanted to ensure nothing dangerous was overlooked. Ryan waved a dismissive hand, turning away. The real danger is wasting time with nosy newbies like you. Ethan stood still, watching the man's retreating figure. The man who had once nearly won Emily. Ryan was still arrogant, still dismissive, of safety, of everything, of him. This inspection had now become a real battle. Night fell over the wind farm, with only the whistling wind weaving through the turbine blades and the flickering lights of signal lamps atop the tall towers. The control station was nearly deserted. Taking advantage of the shift change, Ethan quietly returned to the operations room, carrying a handheld data reader connected to the internal system. Under the dim blue glow of the computer screen, he entered the temporary technician login code. Though in disguise, Ethan was the man who had laid the foundation for this entire system, from hardware to software interfaces. He knew where to look, what should be there, and what was being hidden. He typed in the code for turbine number 12-lightning protection system error. A stream of data appeared. Warning timestamps, error types, risk levels, thermal images captured by drones. But strangely, all reports after the initial warning were gone. Ethan frowned. He shifted to the maintenance logs. A series of entries appeared, but there was a gap spanning nearly a week, coinciding with the E-245 incident. No technicians had reported repairs, no dispatch orders, not a single note. He suspected something was being concealed. Using a deep scan code, Ethan searched for files marked hidden from standard users. Within seconds, a file appeared, its name suspicious. Ethan opened it. A series of on-site images appeared. Turbine number 12 showed black burn marks near the technical cabinet at its base. In one photo, there were clear signs of burned trash, a pile of ash right next to the tower, dangerously close to the electrical wiring. Attached was a scanned handwritten note. Temporarily ignore, no need to report to headquarters, reassess after the strong wind season. RC, none other than Ryan Carter. Ethan felt a jolt run down his spine. This was no longer a neglected technical error. This was deliberate. Burning trash near a turbine was already a severe violation of fire safety regulations. But what chilled Ethan more was how Ryan handled the warning. He erased it from the system, ignored the risk, and let the turbine operate as if nothing had happened. If lightning struck turbine number 12, a real possibility in this area, a fire would be inevitable. And when that happened, Ryan could easily blame a natural disaster. Ethan sat frozen before the screen. Fury surged, not just at Ryan's recklessness with the workers' lives and the company's reputation, but because he realized this was a game of revenge. Ryan had never forgotten that Emily chose him, a poor man with ambition, over a wealthy heir. For 20 years, he harbored that resentment. Now, managing this branch, he quietly sabotaged, bit by bit, to hurt Ethan without ever facing him. He thought Ethan would never know, but he was wrong. Ethan copied all the data, storing it on an external device. His eyes burned with resolve, sharp as an approaching storm. The game ends here, Ryan. You thought I wouldn't see, but I've never seen more clearly. The next morning it dawned unusually clear. The turbine blades spun steadily against a blue sky, as if no chaos had ever threatened. But in Ethan's heart, a storm was brewing. Not from the wind, but from the betrayal and danger silently spreading beneath the facade of stable operations. Ethan stepped into the main monitoring room with a calm demeanor. Ryan stood before the control panel, a coffee cup in hand, his lazy gaze drifting across the screens. When he saw Ethan, he raised an eyebrow, half irritated, half disdainful. "What are you doing here again? I told you not to loiter in the center," Ryan said, setting his cup down, his voice gruff. Ethan approached, placing a hand lightly on the console. "I wanted to ask more about turbine number 12. Still the E-245 error code." Ryan sighed, exasperated. Again? I told you it's a false alarm. Old news. Not your business. Ethan didn't back down. He placed a printed image from the suspicious file on the table. Burn marks, a pile of ash, a note with the initials RC. Can you explain this? Ethan asked, his gaze fixed on Ryan. Ryan glanced at it, raised an eyebrow, then smirked. Where did you dig this up? A new technician with too much free time, huh? He grabbed the paper, crumpled it into a ball, and tossed it into the trash. Who do you think you are, questioning me like this? Ethan remained calm. I think I'm someone who knows the risks of deleting maintenance reports, of burning trash near the tower, of leaving the lightning protection system offline during storm season. Ryan leaned forward, hands on the table, his eyes suddenly icy. You're a rookie. You don't know how things work here. I'm in charge. And if I say there's no problem, there's no problem. Got it? The room fell silent for a few seconds. Outside, the turbines kept spinning, each rotation steady like the heartbeat of a giant machine. A machine Ryan was quietly poisoning from within. Ethan stood tall, meeting Ryan's gaze. What if someone higher up finds out about this? What do you think they'd say? Ryan burst into laughter. Higher than me? I run this place. The company boss probably doesn't have time to dig through every turbine. And even if he did, it wouldn't be you. He stepped closer, patting Ethan's shoulder. A cold, sharp sound. Listen to me. Focus on your job. Leave the ethics and risks to someone with experience like me. Ethan nodded slightly as if conceding, but in his eyes was a faint smile. Not of surrender, but of knowing he'd just seen Ryan's true self. He wasn't just arrogant. He was blindly overconfident. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but Ethan knew. When it did, it wouldn't be the wind or lightning that ended Ryan. It would be the arrogance he clung to. At noon, the sun blazed across the wind farm. The giant blades sliced through the blue sky like knives cutting into memory. Ethan stood alone on the observation deck, his eyes fixed on turbine number 12 inches in the distance. But his mind wasn't there. It drifted back 20 years. They were both young then. Ryan Carter, the son of a wealthy energy investor, Ethan's classmate in an energy engineering program. Ryan was brilliant, but always smug. With his red sports car, polished shoes, and cold smile, he had everything without trying, except Emily. Emily, the girl with brown hair and resolute eyes, both gentle and strong. Ethan met her in the library, where they competed for a book on wind power. Back then, he was just a poor student, working night shifts, living in a cramped rented apartment. But in Emily's eyes, Ethan had something Ryan never would, a relentless will to rise and a steadfast kindness. Ryan had seen Emily as his. He wooed her with flowers, cars, and lavish dinners. Ethan had only an old computer, cheap coffee, and a sincere heart. In the end, Emily chose Ethan. Ethan remembered the night Ryan confronted him, eyes bloodshot, voice hoarse with liquor. You think being poor makes you noble? No, you're just good at playing the victim. She'll regret this. But Emily never did. They married after graduation. Ethan threw himself into building his career with his own hands. Meanwhile, Ryan, defeated in love, retreated into his family's business, disappearing for a long time. Now, 20 years later, he had returned, not as a loser, but as a destroyer in the shadows. He didn't need violence or scandals. He needed only a turbine to burn, a station to disconnect, a small flaw, enough to cause damage before anyone noticed. Ethan gripped the railing tightly. The signs formed a clear picture. Ryan wasn't just negligent. He was sabotaging deliberately. He wanted to ruin the system Ethan had built, to prove the man Emily rejected could still make Ethan fail. No one but Ryan could manipulate data, bury reports, order staff to ignore issues. No one but him had a personal motive to hide the truth, then blame the system, the storm, or fate. Ethan closed his eyes, breathing deeply. He wasn't angry that Emily had once been the center of Ryan's resentment. He was angry that Ryan dared to gamble with the workers' lives and the company's reputation just to pursue a selfish grudge from the past. The wind swept fiercely across the station's roof, but in Ethan's heart, something stronger than the wind burned. a resolve to end this old petty game once and for all. At the end of the day, Ethan called an unscheduled meeting in the central control room. The stated reason was brief: review turbine safety and operational procedures. Ryan was present, standing at the head of the table, still exuding confidence tinged with irritation at the interruption to his schedule. The technicians filed one by one. They sat around the table, their faces showing surprise when they saw Ethan, the new technician, taking a seat at the center, a spot usually reserved for management. Ryan glanced at his watch, tapping the table, his voice laced with impatience. "Let's make this quick. I have a meeting with equipment suppliers. Who called this meeting?" Ethan stood, pulling from his pocket a copy of the system report, on-site images of turbine number 12, and the hidden file note with RC scrawled on it. He placed them on the table in front of everyone. "This is the evidence I've gathered over the past 3 days," Ethan said, his voice slow but commanding. Turbine number 12 was neglected for lightning protection repairs, showed signs of trash burning nearby, a severe fire safety violation. The reports were erased, deliberately hidden from the system. The room fell silent. Ryan scoffed. "You're still on about that? A newbie like you has no right to dig into internal data, let alone question me in front of the team." Ethan locked eyes with Ryan, his gaze no longer concealing his identity. He raised a hand, removing his hard hat. The other hand peeled off the fake beard, piece by piece. Each movement was deliberate, like layers of a mask being stripped away from a long play. The room froze. A technician whispered, "It's Ethan Brooks?" Ryan stumbled back half a step, as if struck in the chest. His eyes widened, then narrowed, a mix of confusion and fear. "No, it can't be." Ethan took a step forward, his voice lowering, resonant like a turbine roaring in a storm. "Can't be, Ryan? Don't you recognize the man you swore to destroy at any cost?" Ryan clenched his fists, his voice faltering. You set me up." Ethan gave a slight nod. "No, Ryan, you set yourself up. I only did what a leader must: protect safety, justice, and trust." He turned to the technicians, his eyes sincere. "I went undercover not to humiliate anyone. I wanted to see the system with real eyes. And sadly, the person entrusted with the greatest responsibility turned out to be the one endangering us all." Ryan roared, "You'll regret humiliating me in front of them." Ethan didn't flinch. "I'm not humiliating you. I'm firing you." The words landed like thunder on a clear day. Ethan pulled a document from his pocket, a termination order, fully signed and stamped by the board. He placed it in front of Ryan, then turned away. Ryan stood like a statue, the room silent. No more smirks, no more disdain. Only a heavy silence and an empty spot in the control room. The mask had fallen, and justice, at last, emerged. 3 days after the fateful meeting, the atmosphere at the wind power station had noticeably shifted. The whispers and gossip faded, replaced by a brisk, responsible, and focused rhythm of work. Gone were the anxious, evasive glances and the oppressive commands from Ryan Carter, who was now officially banned from any facility under the corporation. Ethan stood in the yard, no longer in disguise. He still wore the engineer's uniform, but a new hard hat, emblazoned with the company logo, sat neatly on his head. He had just finished inspecting turbine number 12 with the technical team. The lightning protection system had been fully replaced, the surrounding area cleared and marked with a no-fire sign. A thermal surveillance camera was installed at the tower's base, a silent warning that nothing would be hidden anymore. Beside him were 2 young engineers, once berated by Ryan for overcomplicating things. Today they listened intently to every word Ethan said, their eyes filled with respect. "We don't just generate electricity from the wind. We create a future through trust," Ethan said, his voice not loud but resonant enough for those around to hear. "If one turbine is neglected, the whole system can falter. But if one person is neglected, the ethics of this organization will crumble." A scattered round of applause broke out from the technical team, hesitant at first, then growing into a powerful echo. Ethan nodded in thanks, then quietly stepped out into the wind farm. He stopped beneath the first turbine he'd ever installed, TW01, where it all began. The blades spun steadily above, reflecting the afternoon sun like the silent beats of time. He pulled out his phone, opening an old message from Emily. "If you feel the need to return to the man you once were, I support you. Just remember, I always chose the one who listens to the wind, not the one who only controls it." He smiled, replying with a short line. "I've heard it clearly now. The wind still speaks the truth. Only people know how to stay silent." Ethan pocketed his phone, looking toward the horizon where the turbines spun quietly. No arrogance, no resentment, just fulfilling their purpose, generating energy and preserving life. At that moment, Ethan knew he hadn't just defeated Ryan. He had overcome something deeper, the resentment that had once simmered within him. By choosing justice over vengeance, he had restored not only the system's order, but also the deepest value of the journey he began 20 years ago. The wind kept blowing, but this time, Ethan no longer needed to fight it. He had become a part of it.